Okay, so the Jackson has been sitting for a couple of days after we did the truss rod and string height adjustments. I checked it again just now before starting the recording, and everything was really good. I was quite happy with the way it felt and played. Um, the relief I've set at the seventh fret was about 10,000ths of an inch, and that's with the capo at the first fret and holding my finger at the 17th fret and taking the measurement at the seventh. I went online just to see what Jackson recommended, and that was one of their recommended specs was 10,000ths at the seventh fret. Um, since this is my guitar, I'm setting it up for how I like to play. Just happens to be pretty close to what Jackson recommends. There's a little bit of variation, I guess, depending on the type of guitars you're talking about, but for the most part, that's a pretty good starting point. If you're new to this, start with maybe 10,000ths to 12,000ths, and kind of go from there. Go by feel, your style of playing, the type of guitar you've got. There's a number of factors, but that's a good starting point. This guitar seems to like 10,000ths. I had it set a little lower at around 8, but I thought, you know what, let's leave it at 10. Um, or sorry, I readjusted it back to 10 just because of this heavier gauge of string, and we're playing in D standard tuning. So, it's easy enough to tweak later once I've played the guitar a little bit just to see how I like the feel of it. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at 10,000ths of an inch. So that being said, the next step is to set the intonation. And, the intonation was actually really, really good. The only string that really needs an adjustment is the low E string, which is now tuned down to D because of the tuning we're in. So I've got the camera set up so you can see the bridge adjustment here, and you can see my tuner there. So there's the open D string. Just get it up to pitch here. I'm doing these adjustments laying down on the bench. It's just easier to record and to do. And when it's all said and done, I'll recheck everything in the playing position. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it laying down. Okay, so we're pretty good there. So now checking the D string, the harmonic at the 12th fret. Pretty good. Then the fretted note at the 12th fret. You can see it's a little bit sharp. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to tighten this screw down here to pull the saddle back this way. So in essence, we're lengthening the string by doing that, by pushing this saddle back this way. So I'm going to detune the string just to take some of the tension off. Get my Phillips screwdriver, and I'm going to give this a couple of turns clockwise just to pull that saddle back a bit. And then I'll tune it back up to pitch. There we go. That's the harmonic. It's a little bit flat now, but let's see what the fretted note looks like. Oh, the fretted note is perfect. Oh, I'm happy with that. Yeah, the harmonic's a little bit flat, but yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna loosen it just a little bit. Tune it back up to pitch. There's our harmonic. And the fretted note. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think we're good there. Yeah, harmonic. Okay, I think we're good. So, like I said earlier, the other strings are all in pretty close to where we want to be. I have to retune them again to make sure, but I checked them before recording and they were pretty good. So I'm not going to film the whole thing, but I will go through them and check them all. And again, I'll check everything in the playing position once I'm done. But the process is the same. If your fretted note and harmonic are a bit sharp, you want to tighten that adjustment screw clockwise to pull the saddle this way. And if your note and harmonic are flat, you want to adjust your screw counterclockwise to push it that way. And we're talking little adjustments here. You don't have to go crazy. And if you're tightening, especially, I would suggest taking the tension off the string. So loosen the tuners a couple of turns, make your adjustment, then retune everything to pitch, and then get your readings again on your tuner. That's about it for intonation. I do have to do a little bit of work on the nut slots. I noticed one of them was a little bit high, but I want to get the intonation done first before I do that. So I'm going to stop the recording now, finish the intonation, and then we'll move on to the nut slots. Okay, I was just looking at the nut slots, and this A string here is quite a bit higher than everything else. And I'll show you using the MusicNomad fret height gauges, string height gauges. They recommend taking these measurements with the guitar in the playing position. I'm doing it for the sake of the video, and for myself, I usually take them lying down and then recheck them later in the playing position. It's just easier. But they recommend 20,000ths of an inch for the low E and the A string. So as you slide it under the low E string at the first fret and you pluck the string, hear how it's just barely making noise? Okay, I'm going to move that same gauge to where the underneath the A string, like it's not even touching. So if we move down to 18,000ths of an inch under the low E string, it's a little better, but it's still rattling quite a bit. I'll move up to the 16,000ths. Yeah, that's barely touching. So I'd say we're around 18,000ths of an inch at the on the low E string, which to me is a little low, but there's nothing I can do about that. But I strum the string open. Like there's no buzzing, and that's laying down too. So I'm not going to worry about that. I am going to worry about this A string. I don't know if you can see that in the video. No, I'd have to show you from a side angle, but there's quite a lot of gap between the fret and the bottom of that A string. And I'm referring to these strings in standard tuning. Okay, this guitar is tuned down to D standard, but you know, just so people don't get confused, this is when I say the A string, it's tuned down to G, but it doesn't matter. We're not worrying about that. We're going to be looking at the slot. Now, one thing to be aware of on the Jackson headstock, the way these strings break, you can really see it on these three here, how they come through the slot and then they cut this way at an angle, which would make filing these nut slots a little trickier than standard, where you would just be going almost straight up and down. Now we're pretty lucky on this A string. That's a pretty much a straight shot right to the tuner. So I'm not going to really sweat that too much. The files I have are for a set of tens. So in this case, the A string would be 0.036 of an inch. That's the size of the file. So the string is actually a little bigger, but when I was playtesting the guitar, I wasn't noticing any binding or jamming up in the nut. And I haven't done anything to this nut other than glue it back in from when it popped off during the initial string change. So I'm going to just leave it alone. I'm going to file it using the 0.36 inch of file just to remove some of that material to lower that string. and see how it looks when we're done. So you need to take the tension off the string, lift it out of the slot, get it out of the way. That should be good. Now, because this string is so high, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my file straight through like this. Here, I'll show you from a side angle like this to remove material. And then when I remove a little bit of material, I'm going to angle the file slightly down, just a few degrees towards the tuner. Okay, so I'll change the camera angle. It might be easier to show you. Because what you want is you want the string to sit inside that slot, but you want it to lay down at an angle towards the tuner, which probably be easier to show you from a different angle. But let me start this cutting process first. So I like to look straight down at the file, and I'm just going to take a little bit off. And I'm just going straight across, not putting any angle in it yet. Toothbrush here that I bought in a bulk pack. I use this for I write dry on it just because I know I have no oil or grease or anything on this brush. It's strictly for removing powder and stuff like this when I'm cutting nut slots. So let's put the string back, see how we did for that. Okay, just get it up to pitch. So we'll try with the, well, let's just start with the 18, see where we're at compared to the low E string. No, you could still take off some more there. So I'll loosen that string off again. And you want to do this, slow and steady, because if you take off too much, you're going to be in trouble. There are some ways you can, build up that groove, but generally it's kind of a temporary thing. Like you're going to need to replace the nut at some point. So it's better to just, do it a few times, get it to where you like it, as opposed to taking off too much where it's way too low and there's nothing you can do about it at that point. And you can fill it with there's tricks with crazy glue and baking soda, things like that. But that's a temporary fix. Like that'll last you a long time, I guess, depending how much you play. But eventually the string will wear through that. Try this again. There we go. So that's yeah, we could go a little bit more. Not much, but a little bit. Okay, let's check that again. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, I could do a little bit more, but I'm going to leave that for right now. Let me just swing the camera around here. So what I'm doing here is I'm holding the string down at the 3rd fret, and then I'm tapping at this 1st fret here, and you can see there's a little bit of a bounce happening above the 1st fret. That's the kind of distance you're looking for. I mean, it's hard to, it's such a small amount, but you can see there is a bit of movement there. If the string was like right against the fret, no, that's obviously too low, right? But that's pretty decent. I'm gonna check the A string. So you can see there's quite a bit more bounce happening there than on the low E string. I I think this is cut a little bit low, but it's not really causing any issues, so I'm not gonna sweat that. I will take a little bit more off this A string slot right up here. But what I'll do is I'll do it from this angle now, just so you can get a different perspective on things. Try not to bump the camera too much because I'm standing right above it. So I'm just going to take some tension off the string, lift it out of my way. So same as I did previously, I'm just going to go straight like this. And then I'm gonna start to angle it down a little bit like that. So you can see there's a slight angle in my file. And I'm just trying to kind of angle it towards the headstock, or I'm sorry, towards the tuner. Okay, tune it back up to pitch now. Okay, so let's take another look at that bounce. Yeah, that's better. That's more in line with what we see on the E string. Okay, and the reason I did that little angle towards the tuner here, let me show you. It's because you want the string to sort of stop at the edge of the nut and then have it sort of angled down this way towards the tuner. And you want it to lay in that slot. You don't want it to be like having the slot too deep or cut at a crazy angle where the string isn't sitting in there nice and snugly. You don't want it too tight because you're going to have tuning issues and stuff. It's kind of hard to explain, but like the way this file is angled right now, that's kind of how you want the string to sit in the slot. I'm exaggerating a little bit so you can see. But again, this is more, I guess, skirting towards an intermediate kind of level of guitar maintenance. Like if you're new at doing this, I wouldn't attempt it on your favorite guitar, especially if you're doing it for the first time. And plus, you also need the right type of files to do these types of things. So this is probably not something you want to do if you're a beginner. But I mean, you got to start somewhere if you want to try it. Maybe if you want to get a second guitar, if you got an old junker guitar you want to practice on, that's probably a good place to start. But that's a different video. There's a more straight up and down angle. So you can kind of see how, I don't know if you can, but see how the string is sitting nice inside that slot there. Sometimes like what'll happen is if that angle isn't right, the string will vibrate in the slot if it's too wide or if it's got too much space underneath the string. Yes, I'm not hearing anything there. It's more noticeable on the higher strings. They call it a sitar effect because it sounds like a sitar because the string is just slightly vibrating inside the nut slot when you pluck it, right? The rest of these are pretty good. I'll have to give them another check just to make sure. But last time I checked them, they were pretty good. But this A string definitely needed some attention. So you could see we started with the 20 thousandths inch feeler gauge, and there was like almost no buzzing on the fret on the gauge at all. We're getting some buzzing there now. I could probably cut that a little lower, but I'm just going to leave it because it's pretty close as it is, and it's definitely much better than it was. Yeah. So as far as the other ones go, I'll check them and make sure they're good, but I think they should be okay. But again, you got to be careful with the way these Jackson headstocks are. This style, anyway, the way these things cut over this way makes it a little trickier to do filing. But yeah, that's just the nature of the way those headstocks go. And that should do it for the setup. Once I'm done, I'll cut the string tails off, put the covers and the plates back on, give it a wipe down, and then we'll revisit it at the end of the video just to kind of go through what I did and just some general thoughts and stuff on the guitar itself. Um, so yeah, we'll see you in the next part. So I did a little more filing of the nut slots. And what I did was I took a tiny bit more off the A string. And then for the D string, it didn't really need any real removal of material. The height was pretty good. But what I did do was I took the D string file, which in this case is a 0.028 for a set of tens, and I just gently went through the slot. I wasn't really trying to remove any material. I was just sort of making the path through the groove a little smoother because these strings are a tiny bit bigger than what was on here originally. When these guitars came from the factory, they were strung up with 9 to 42 gauge strings, according to their website. I don't know what the guy had on before. I kind of had the impression there were tens on there, but regardless, these ones are 11s, so they're a little bit thicker. So all I did was run that file through that slot just to give the string a little room to move a bit. And I did the same for the G string. That one needed a bit of an adjustment to it. I had to take a little material off, and same thing. I ran the G string file, which in this case is a 0.017 for a set of tens. And I did the same thing as I did on the A string. I cut it down, and then I slightly angled the file downward, and then a little bit, just a touch to the right, so it was angled towards the headstock a bit to accommodate this break angle in the string here that I mentioned earlier in the video. And the B string and the E string, they were pretty good. So basically, what we're looking at right now is the E string, A string, D string, and G string are all cut to about 0.018. And that was just to make them consistent. They were all pretty low except for the A string. So I had to cut that one down to match the other three. And the E and the B strings are sitting at around 0.016, maybe 0.017, in around that range, which is good. I wouldn't want to see them any lower. But at least there's a little more consistency now across the string height at the nut. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my file or my gauge again, and I'll just show you one last time what these sound like. So looking at the low E string, A string, D string, and then the G string, I'm going to have to come from this way. Actually, I might be able to cut that one a bit lower. Yeah, so the high E string is barely moving. Same with the B string. Now the G string could maybe take a little more material away, but I think I'm just going to leave it. It's pretty close. I'll play it and see how it feels and sounds, but I think we'll be okay. It's pretty close. I don't want to risk taking too much off, so I think we're good for the nut slots. The next and final step will be to set the pickup height. One thing I did off camera was after I filed those nut slots, the A and the G strings, I had to do a little filing on those two, which changed the intonation. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, I set the intonation, I checked the nut slots, I filed the A and the G strings, actually removed some material to lower them at the headstock end, which altered how the guitar was the intonation down here. So I just had to re-intonate the guitar. Those two strings specifically. The other ones were fine, and I did all this in the playing position, and everything is good to go now. So I did that off camera because I already showed it earlier in the video, so there was no point in repeating that. I just thought I'd mention it because if you do work on the nut, you definitely want to recheck all your measurements, especially as far as the intonation goes, because you've made subtle changes, and it will show up when you go to check. The only other thing that's changed was I checked the neck relief, and it was originally at 10 thousandths of an inch at the seventh fret. When I measured it again, it looked like it had decreased a little bit to around 8 or 9 thousandths of an inch. And I'm okay with that. I played it; it's fine. I'm not getting any buzzing. So I'm just going to leave it. I don't think will be an issue there. But the guitar was sitting for about a day or so, and it just goes to show you with the new strings, and the guitar does settle over time, which is always a good argument for letting your guitar sit for a good day after you do all your initial setups, and then recheck everything. So that being said, the last thing we're going to do now is the pickup height. So I'm just going to move the camera so you can get a better shot of this. Okay, we're going to do pickup height measurements now. What we'll be adjusting are these two screws here, this one and this one here. And all that's going to do is we're going to adjust the pickup up and down, effectively increasing or decreasing the distance between the magnets in the pickup and the bottom of the string here. Now you'll notice that these are humbucker pickups, and this bobbin here has the 6 screw head style pull pieces, which are adjustable with a screwdriver. We're not going to make any adjustments there, okay? If you're a beginner, I would just ignore these for right now. We're strictly going to be using these 2 adjustment screws on the sides, which will raise and lower the entire pickup up or down. I like to take my measurements on these screw heads here because these screw heads have a rounded top on them, where these pull pieces over here are just flat and they're flush with the bobbin, the black part of the pickup. These rounded screw heads are higher than the flathead ones are. So in my mind, that's where I want to take my measurement from, because this will be always will be the closest point to the string. So that's where I like to make my adjustments. And I'm going to be aiming for 4/64ths on the low E string and 3/64ths on the high E string. And those numbers I got from the Jackson website. That's the recommended height settings they recommend for humbucker pickups. So I will start there, dial the pickups into that height, and then once I'm done, I'll plug the guitar in and hear how it sounds. And I may need to raise or lower them just slightly, just for preference and how I like them to sound to my ear. So let me just readjust the camera so you can get a better look at what I'm doing. And I'm just going to show you this on the one pickup because the process is the same for both. Let me just back you out a little bit here. So the process for adjusting pickup heights is fairly easy. What you want to do is you want to depress your finger on the last fret of the guitar right here. And while that string is depressed, you want to take your measurement ruler and take your measurements like that. So I'll zoom you in on the pickup so you can see a little closer what's happening. Okay, so I'm depressing the string at the last fret. I'm looking for 4/64ths. I just need to readjust my light here. Okay, so that one looks like it's about 5/64ths right now. And I like to look at this straight on because sometimes the shadow from the string may cast a little bit of a shadow on the ruler to kind of alter what you think you're seeing for a measurement. So when I depress the string, yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's about 5/64ths. So this pickup needs to be raised a little bit, this side of the pickup, which means we turn the adjustment screw clockwise, and doesn't need much. That's probably all we'll need. And then we'll remeasure. Maybe just a little bit more. A little hard to see. I got the camera right in front where I would normally be looking. Yeah, that's pretty close, so just a tiny bit more. Okay, looks good to me. That's 4/64ths on the button. It's probably not showing through on the camera very well. Yeah, maybe 4.5. Kind of hard to see with that shadow in the way, but I want to try and film this so you can see the process. Okay, that looks like 4/64ths to me there now. Okay, and I'll do the same on the high E string, and since the process is exactly the same, you depress the string at the last fret, and then take your measurement on top of the screw head. So you can't really see this in this particular angle, but the process is the same. This one is very, very close to 3/64, so I'm just going to raise it up a touch. Yeah, that's all we needed. So that's how you would alter your pickup height. Now, you'll do the same for the neck pickup as well, and the process is exactly the same. You depress the string, take your measurements, and we would aim for the same 4/64ths on the low side and 3/64ths on the high side. After that's done, you want to plug your guitar in and hear how it sounds. You want to make sure that there's a nice balance between these two pickups, okay? So turn your amp on, plug everything in, and just strum some chords. Move your selector switch between the two pickups. And as you're moving them back and forth, you want to get a nicely balanced sound. Like you don't want this one bridge pickup to be significantly louder than the neck pickup. You want the volume to be at least, the same as the other one. Now, some people may adjust their pickups to be a little closer to the strings for a little more volume. Again, for the same reason, maybe you want the neck pickup a little closer. And when you flick the selector switch to the neck pickup, you've got a little bit of a volume boost without adjusting your control knobs. That's a personal preference. I would suggest go with the factory specs, plug it in, hear how it sounds. If it sounds nice and clear and you're happy with it, just leave it alone. If one of them is a little quieter than the other, you may want to raise one or lower the other one. Just get them nicely balanced. Or if you want, like I said, you can make one louder if you prefer it that way. But that is a personal preference thing. That's how I adjust humbucker pickups. Pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of tools required. Just a screwdriver. And you definitely want something like a precise measuring tool, like a ruler like this, or a string action height ruler will have the same measurements on it. So that's about it for pickup height. Okay, I got the Jackson all back together. All the covers and stuff are on. Snipped off the string tails. Took her for a little test drive on the practice amp I have here by the bench. The amp I use is a Line 6 Spider 3. I like it because it's got a solid state amp. It's just a small practice amp, but it's got 4 presets from clean, crunch, metal to insane. And it's nice to just run the guitar through all 4 of those settings. I have them kind of dialed in to be everything's about 12 o'clock, like the treble, the mid range, the bass. I have no effects on, no reverb. It's just straight amplification. And then I, fiddle around with the knobs a bit just to see, depending on what kind of pickups I'm using. But in this case, this guitar, these pickups are actually really responsive to all the settings I tried. Like they have a nice clean sound on the clean setting, or the distorted setting. They really shine a lot too. Even on the insane level, which I don't really play on too much because I find it's just a little too insane as far as the distortion and the gain goes, but it handled them well. According to the manufacturer specs, they're just called high gain humbuckers. So I'm pretty sure there's ceramic magnets in there. At this price point, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but that doesn't mean they're bad. I mean, they are very responsive. So I was quite happy with how they sounded. The D standard tuning was kind of a change for me. I did have another guitar I use occasionally in D standard, but I think after playing this one, I think I may have lighter gauge strings on that other one I have, because I found this one is a little more difficult to play, only because the strings are a little fatter. Normally on a guitar like this, I'd be playing a set of nines, 9 to 42s, but that's just me, just kind of getting used to the heavier gauge string. And speaking of strings, we put a set of 11s on here, and I had to do very little in the way of changing the setup, like very minor tweaks to the truss rod, string height. Actually, I barely had to adjust the string height at all from where it was. Everything was at 4/64, which seems to be nice. And intonation needed a little tweaking. But yeah, I'm thinking the heavier gauge string with the lower tuning kind of helped balance everything out. I think that's maybe what happened here. So I mean, it's fine. That's kind of cool. A little less work for me. The nut did pop off during the string change, but not a big deal. I was able to show you how I would, repair that, which is just re-gluing it, and a little cutting of the nut slots just to kind of make everything a little more balanced. And I don't have the guitar plugged in, but you shouldn't have to press very hard at all down here to make those notes ring out. So there's a nice action down at the nut. The pickups sound good. I didn't touch the electronics here. Everything is working fine, so I just left it alone. And yeah, other than the trem bar missing, which I would not use anyway. Yeah, the thing's nice. I'm quite happy with it. I just got to get used to these heavier gauge strings. That's just me. But overall, I really like this guitar. If you happen to come across one and you're looking to, buy a second guitar or upgrade something you currently have, I think you could do a lot worse than this guitar. These pickups seem to like, clean, heavier stuff, crunchier stuff. They seem to accept everything I was throwing at it quite well. So yeah, I would recommend this guitar and definitely buy it again if given the chance. So I give it a recommend if you're looking for another guitar. And I think that'll do it for the Jackson JS11. If you have any thoughts or comments, please put them in the comments section. I'd be curious to know if anyone out there has one of these and what your take on it is. I think that'll wrap things up for the Jackson guitar. Thanks for watching, guys, and hope to see you in the next video.